for this opening segment. Hello, Mr. Cienfuegos.
Hi, Robert. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so how you been? What's new?
Nothing's really new when you work as much as I do. Just kind of, trying to get by.
I hear you. So, anything new of interest in the media that has caught your attention?
Well, there's, the ongoing big story of the debt crisis, but, obviously Amy Winehouse, junking herself out to death apparently is more important, but, so, I don't know, we can talk about Amy Winehouse and why she shouldn't be in the 27 Club.
Okay, well, let's actually touch on that a little bit, because that kind of does creep me out.
Really?
Well, I mean, the fact that, just the whole 27 thing, I mean, yeah, a little bit, I mean, I'm a little creeped out by it. I mean, that's weird. It's getting weird. It's getting creepy.
It's not really that weird when you start thinking about it in terms of probabilities.
Well, I mean, I suppose. I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I'm just telling you, it is kind of creepy.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but if you start parsing it down, then you kind of look at it as like, well, most musicians will get signed somewhere in their early 20s. Probably leading up to that, they didn't have much money to buy drugs. All of a sudden, they have a lot of money to buy drugs. Sometime by their mid-20s, give them 2 or 3 years to really develop a brutal habit, have a publicly embarrassing expose of their brutal habit. They go into some dark place in their massive house, do too many drugs, and never come out of it.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I mean, it is a whole year's worth of time, so a lot can happen in that year, right? So, yeah. It's not as though it was, 27 years, so many months, and some odd days, right? That would be really creepy, but, people do instinctually look for patterns. You know what I mean? We're trained to see 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So we'll see it in carpet or wood grain. You know what I mean? We'll recognize that, especially if under the influence of powerful psychedelics.
I'll say this, though. Say what you will about Amy Winehouse, at least she got to the 27 Club the good old-fashioned way. I mean, Kurt Cobain cheated. And they mentioned his name in there. I never really understood that. You can't blow your head off and then all of a sudden be with, like, Janice and Jim and, Brian Jones. That's not fair.
Well, I don't know whether that talk about conspiracy theories. I mean, I don't know how well versed you are in the realm of conspiracy theories. I mean, I'm not really myself. I mean, I wouldn't say so. But then there's the whole, he was murdered deal, and I'm sorry to even pay that mind, but there's very few issues that can come to mind right now that I can assuredly say, yeah, I'm for this, I'm for that. Like gun rights, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pro Second Amendment. Where are you at on the gun issue, the Second Amendment issue?
I've always been kind of weird with that. I personally have no problem with guns. My dad owned guns growing up. I've shot one maybe twice in my life. It's not really my thing. They scare me, but I don't think other people should be precluded from having them.
Yeah.
But, when I talk about Second Amendment, there's a couple things that always go through my mind. One of them is my reading of the Second Amendment is pretty different from most gun right advocates. I don't look at the Second Amendment as a carte blanche gun ownership thing. And, when I read it, I mean, to me, it was a world that could be invaded again by the Brits, They did not yet have a standing army, per se. So I kind of looked at it as, like, keep your guns ready because you never know when they're going to come back, So I just don't know if it's really applicable in the modern world if you agree with that interpretation, but I know other people don't agree with that interpretation. I mean, Obama doesn't.
From my understanding, there's plenty of examples. I mean, of the writing of the Founding Fathers and their intentions, and, they very, very clear where the authority lies. One nation, one people, under God. You know what I mean? And that's another one of those things. Times have changed, I guess. You know what I mean? But ultimately, when we say, under God, we mean there is only one thing above us, and that is the God and not the state. So that our founding fathers were very firm believers in that, the power rested with the people. I mean, and everywhere you look, governments are instituted among men. The government is there to protect. America stands for truth and justice, and it's there to guarantee, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. So everywhere you look, you're seeing the power being put in the hands of the people, and that's everything they did. The separation of powers was for one branch of government to not ultimately become so powerful that it becomes tyrannical and sets laws for the people that it itself does not obey, and that's what we've got. We've got a Supreme Court decision, which I wish I could be more specific, tell you, what year it was and which one it was. I can't, and so therefore, there's a problem right there. You know what I mean? I'm taking the Supreme Court ruling as gospel, and I can't even tell you which one it is. But from my understanding, there is a court. What I've been told, there's
a court decision that I think exists.
Yeah, exactly. And people need to be more realistic about what it is they know. And that's I don't want to get deviated too much, but that's the main problem. And hopefully, we'll come back around to it. Is what people think they know. But there's a Supreme Court decision out there which says that a police officer cannot be held accountable for being responsible for your life, meaning they are not responsible for keeping you alive, meaning that a police officer, I'm assuming the intention was that you can't go back and your family can't sue a police officer for wrongful death because they got held up in traffic. You know what I mean? But ultimately, It's this big broad brush which ends up saying that the police do not have to save you. You know what I mean? They're not obligated to save your life.
Do you know what the background of that case was? Like what?
No, I don't.
Led to the decision or anything?
No, that'd be very interesting though, and I, myself, or you, someone in the crisis, associated with the Crisis Club is definitely going to get back with the listeners on that. That's a good point. Definitely, to be continued on that. We'll talk about that again. But sure. On the to-do list, so you've got that. Now, on the other hand, you've got the Second Amendment, which, here's the thing. Politics divides, okay, in my estimation. It does some other things, but one of the things it does is personal politics divides in this country, and I think it's wielded as a hammer. You can build a house with it, you can smack someone over the head with it, and kill them. In this country, politics divides. And so the Second Amendment, everyone is gun. It's all on gun. And it mentions arms. It doesn't say, Morning Star. It doesn't say cutlass. It doesn't say... It's bear arms. But everyone is really hyper-focused on gun. And so it becomes a gun issue. But for me, the Second Amendment is not a gun issue. It's a defense issue. So if the police are not responsible for your life... And really, who ultimately is responsible for your life, liberty, safety, freedom, and happiness? Well, you are. And who is the government? We, the people. So ultimately, it is our responsibility to keep ourselves safe. And so when people attack the Second Amendment, I see that as someone denying our essential liberty to defend ourselves. And so I don't think that when people make these... when they stand against the Second Amendment, more often than not, it hasn't really been thought through by that person, I think. From what I encounter. And so when you've got this, dogmatic, sheep-like aversion to the Second Amendment, it really strikes a chord in me that is really quite... It's kind of like a unique feeling I get from what we're talking about, because essentially what it is someone... usually standing up for, the other essential liberties enshrined within the Constitution, and then totally out of hand rejecting an amendment. If it wasn't important, it wouldn't be in there, and it really troubles me when people, the gun thing, they really reject it and don't understand exactly how quintessential this human right is, or this civil liberty to defend themselves. And it's very scary that people can be made to reject something really so important. You know, I mean, does that make sense?
Absolutely. But I guess the one thing that really pisses me off about the Second Amendment debate that always happens is I really feel that a lot of the very pro-gun people, like NRA, for example, I guess I just have an issue with anyone that's a single-issue voter, where it becomes... I remember during the 2004 election when I see, like, the sportsman for Bush.
Okay.
Stickers everywhere.
I think I see where you're going.
Yeah, and it's just like, are you really going to decide the fate of my country because of your fucking hobby? I mean, really? Is that what you're telling me right now? And regardless of what a lot of pundits and, you know, some of the people from the pro-gun camp say, I don't think there's been a single Democratic administration that said take away guns. There has been discussion about limiting the kinds of guns, and, you know, you can get into the merits of that, but I guess the difference is that there's the very pro-gun folk won't even engage in the discussion to prove their case.
Yeah.
The head of the NRA was invited by the president to come to the White House, see if they can just talk out the gun issue, see if there's anything they can work on together. And this hillbilly turned down the president of the United States, wouldn't even have a discussion with the president. And I think that's just absolutely ridiculous, you know?
It's a strong statement. I mean, it's a bold statement.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's bullshit to not even engage in the discussion, you know? Because, I mean, you can't... No matter how you read the Second Amendment, there is nobody that can say with 100% certainty what the absolute intent was, and nor can they say with 100% certainty if the Founding Fathers saw the lay of the land now that their opinions would be the same. Well, or even if they saw what technological advancements in guns now, if they'd feel exactly the same, you know. I mean, a lot of the amendments were changed. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the thing is that if the Founding Fathers had anything to do with it, we would have never got to where we are today. And in technology and the advancements that we have is often pointed at as, you know, a reason to basically reject or not applicate these essential human civil liberties that we have that I think are very important. And so, you know, there's a lot of things we can talk about, you know, or a lot of ways we can go with that. But what I'm going to say is that, you know, George Bush famously said that the Constitution is just a goddamn piece of paper. And the thing is that the truth hurts. All right, until you accept it, and at which point it sets you free. So the thing is that he's totally right. I mean, the Constitution is just a goddamn piece of paper. So the thing is that the values, all right, that what we call first principles, right, which made this country great. I mean, to me, you got a hard case to make to tell me that this country was not great at one time. I mean, I don't know. I feel it was. You know, there's a certain sentiment I have about this nation at one point in time, and I would call it great. So,
well, it depends who you were during those points in times.
Yeah, I mean that's true. But as a whole, I would say that this is a unique and very great place because, and that's a whole other discussion altogether. And I mean, I guess I'm basically on that topic and had forgotten where I was going before anyway.
So, where do you stand on the whole gun thing? Are you okay with any kind of gun, no matter what? No checks on who's buying it or anything? I mean, do you think I should be able to go to the corner store and get, you know, a Slurpee and a Glock?
And then, I mean, I don't know. I mean, in this environment, you're right. You're absolutely right. The world has changed. But the original point that I was trying to make is that if we had held true to the Founding Fathers' original vision of what this country was, then we wouldn't have never gotten to the point where this would be a question. You know what I mean? I mean, does that make sense? Now, I've gotten pretty flustered on the topic now, so I'm not even sure that I'm making sense to myself. So you tell me.
I guess I just can't I just don't know what